Live. Dang it. Okay, well, I'm just going to go live. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And hey, what's going on, YouTube? It's Rory with Roar in the Jungle. And I'm here with Porter Hayes of Hawg Talk Podcasts. And sir, I'm glad you came on because this past week in Razorback Nation has been pretty crazy, and I'd figure I'd want an expert to talk about it. Well, pretty much an expert because clearly I'm not. So Porter, can you let the people know what you do?
Well, actually, with the host of the Hawg Talk podcast, we are one of the premier podcasts in the state of Arkansas. We recently, just last week, got picked up by the ESPN Arkansas Hit That Line podcast network. So it's really expanded our platform. So I'm really happy to be joined with Ty Richardson and Tommy Kraft and Phil Elson and all the guys with ESPN Arkansas.
That's dope, man. And hopefully one day I hope to be up in that sphere also because, getting into the media and doing all that stuff is kind of a dream of mine. I've been wanting to get in there for a long time and, just really dipping my toes in it right now. But
I got lucky. What started? We can talk about this too. Like, if you want to ask me how I got into it, man, it's just about networking, dude. Connecting, being in the right place at the right time. Actually, my dad's from Greenville, South Carolina. I'm actually a Clemson Tiger fan, huge Clemson Tiger fan, diehard. I used to spend my summers out there. Well, the women's basketball tournament was in Greenville, South Carolina. Well, me and a dude got connected through Twitter. He actually runs Sports and Culture. That's where I'm the president of Sports and Culture Arkansas. Well, me and him started feeding each other information about the women's basketball tournament. Hey, man, do you want to write for me? Now, all of a sudden, it starts in. Now I'm writing for Sports and Culture. Then I meet up with the guys at the Hawg Talk. They bring me on. And then it just started an explosion. So, best advice I can give you is, dude, just reach out to people.
Yeah.
Find anybody. Don't be afraid to slide in the DMs and talk to those people who are wanting to, go to collegepressbox.com. You can find any beat writer. You can find anybody you want to that covers any team. And you can just start talking to them. They'll give you your Twitter handle. You DM them. All they can do is say yes or no. And then you just go from there.
Well, that's honestly like what I've been trying to do. Because personally, I love conversation. I love just talking to people. So sliding the DMs. The worst thing you do is just not respond or say no to me, which is
exactly
cool, whatever. You don't want to talk to me. That's fine. I can find someone else to talk to. Right here, I'm talking with you, and for
exactly.
Much, this was just happenstance.
Mm-hmm.
Like I literally just commented.
So HPR. You didn't know I was from Ozark when you reached out to me. That's crazy. Yeah,
I just wanted to talk. I'll talk to anyone who wants to talk. Who wants to talk football or sports? I just love conversation, honestly. But I was like, you know what? He probably knows. He probably knows a little more about Arkansas than I do because I live in South Korea right now. I'm stationed. So I'm not in the Razorback sphere, but I still love talking about it. I still love talking about NFL, NCAA. Wherever I can get the information, I guess would be the term. The information that I want. I just want to talk to people and just conversate. So
how did you get involved with the Bengals? Like, what made you a Bengals fan?
Ocho Cinco.
Okay.
Growing up in Ozark, man, I was. You can ask all the teachers in Ozark. I was a class clown. I was constantly, in the office or whatever, talking to Jody Jenkins or Coach Parrish, and
speaking of that, I definitely want to say something about that too.
I definitely did.
Yeah, because what's crazy? I'm gonna tell you a funny story about him. He was the principal the year after I graduated.
Oh yeah,
So Coach Parrish and Mr. Gossage, who's now the representative, Mr. Gossage was my principal. So I went back my freshman year of college to go see Coach Parrish, and I walk in, and I just walk right past Miss Kirkendall, and Mr. Jenkins comes out. He said, "What do you think you're doing?" And I said, "Man, I'm just here to see Coach Parrish," and just walked right past him. He's like, "Hold on, who do you think you are?" Coach Parrish walks out and said, "Don't listen to this a-hole. Come back here with me."
Yeah.
So, but we got off on the wrong foot, and but we held a grudge there for each other for about a couple of months. But once we really got to know each other, it's just he's an awesome dude, and it really shocked me knowing how this all went down.
Yeah, it's sad to hear because Jody Jenkins was a great man.
Yes.
A mentor. He, out between Coach Parrish and Jody Jenkins, those men probably saved my life because I graduated high school with a 2.2, and the reason I had 2.2 is because of them.
Yeah,
it wasn't because I didn't know I wasn't like smart. It's just I never applied myself, and I remember them pulling back into the office, and like you said, you could walk into Coach Parrish's office and just have a conversation with him anytime you wanted to. You're in class, of course, but if you had a free period, like Coach Parrish would welcome any conversation. Jody Jenkins would. I spent a lot of time in their office, but
Coach Parrish. Like when my parents got divorced when I was 12, and I lived on Gibson Street, which is right down from the gym. So he basically gave me a key, and I would go in there all the time just if I was having a rough day, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, and I'd go in there, turn the lights on, and just shoot. And that's where a lot of my sports come from. When I was a little kid, I didn't have a lot of friends. We're in that little community of Webb City. So I would play basketball games, football games, anything, and I would be by myself, being both teams, fouling myself and everything. That's where my imagination and love of sports really come on, so.
Yeah, I mean, if it weren't for Coach Parrish, and I probably wouldn't have the love for football that I have now. Like I said, he saved my life. He almost expelled me. He gave me two choices: like you can either join the football team or you can get expelled. And I walked my butt down to Coach Burns's office and pretty much asked them if I could be part of the team. And it's like Coach Parrish knew because they already had my nameplate made.
That's really cool. Yeah, small world, man.
Yeah, it's kind of he knew that I was gonna go to the office, and he knew that's what he was gonna do to me. I'm like, man, but the thing is, he had that much thought of me, and he was thinking about me that much that he literally talked to the coaches before I got in trouble, and knew I was gonna get in trouble, and he gave me an option. Yep. So I thought that was amazing for me. And Coach Parrish, I nothing but praise for that man. Jody also mentored me a lot. But sir, let's get into the Razorbacks. That Auburn game, that's gonna stick in my craw for a long time.
That was tough. That was a tough one. Just because the fact that and we don't like to really say don't let a ref make the outcome of the game, but going back to Ozark, Miss Suit always told us for every rule there's an exception. That's the one thing I got from her, and that was the exception. Like that ref cost the game because if he would have called that a fumble like it should, then Arkansas falls on the ball. They get the ball, and then now they won the game. And for a team so hungry for a win, and the fans that are so hungry for success, I mean that's what hurts the most. Because doing a podcast, we reach out to fans, and we know how. And I'm growing up in Arkansas, I know how rampant this fan base is, and they're so hungry for the success. And I wanted it a lot more for the fans, just as much as the players, because the players are tired of losing just as much as the fans are.
Yeah. You want to see the best because you have talent. Cameron Curl, by the way, is the highest graded rookie cornerback in the NFL right now, and he wasn't getting that recognition. In Arkansas that he should have. I think because I love Cameron coming out. I thought he had everything he needed to do to be an NFL cornerback. It just the spotlight wasn't on the Razorbacks just because the era that he was playing in with the Razorbacks. Between the down years of Bielema and throughout the Chad Morris experiment, pretty much. But yes, having been all across the nation, all across the world, I'm military, so I know a lot of fans. There's not a whole lot of fans that are as rampant as the Razorbacks, and especially for us not being like national contenders every year, for us to have that kind of tenacity and love for their team is kind of amazing to me, and it makes me feel because clearly both my teams are both shunned by their respective leagues. So just growing up with that, the Razorbacks, I think they mean more to the people of Arkansas than a lot of other college teams mean to them.
Yeah, and
And
I think Nebraska is about the only one that can rival
yeah,
what
I would
Arkansas
say so.
is
Yeah,
because they're. I mean, you go to the spring game and they get 80, 90,000 to the spring
oh, for
game and
sure.
they come off of two. It really, and that's all there is in Nebraska is the
Mhm.
Huskers. So I mean, yeah, there's no other fan base, and that's the thing. Like, it doesn't matter if it's water polo. That team ranked number one, the fans want to feel. Why aren't they ranked number one? It's just they want to be the best at everything. And I think, with that game, they knew they had it in the bag. And nobody expected them to win that game. Now, everybody with Mississippi State game, they had them picked before the hand of the season, guys at Hog Talk we did. But after that game with LSU, we're like, oh, crap. Costello went off. But then he's really starting to show who he truly is. Now, I think that's been 2020. I think that's been the 2020 season. Is you can't take what happened last week and in past season be like, well, they played Alabama hard. They're going to come at us hard. You can't really do that this year.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, and I think so. I got into this on my channel. Like COVID's impacted the entire sports sphere just
Yes.
incredibly. You basically the NBA had there was no what you call it? No home field advantage. No advantage. There's nothing there, and it's basically just ball on ball. So us with the way we're going right now, and man, Nick Saban just got diagnosed, and I think one of his other
him and the
staffers.
athletic director, the AD at Alabama got too. The AD.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I mean, hopefully that we get past that, and hopefully they get out of it just fine. I don't want to see Nick Saban's I don't want to see him go down like that. But COVID's affected the players in a lot of ways too. Like I was talking with my friend Jordan, pretty much like them not being able to train in the NFL the way they want to. I think is what led to all the injuries that they're experiencing because they're experiencing a lot of ligament stuff like Achilles and meniscus and like stuff like that. Like it happens during football, but not to the clip that it was happening in the first 2 weeks of the NFL. But in the NCAA, I think there was a less of an impact when it came to actual like sports injury and all that stuff. But it's definitely affected it in a big way.
Yeah, and it's not only affected NFL, but it's affected all the way down to Pee Wee. I mean, my stepson, he's on the junior high team in Ozark, and I could see the first couple of games, like the conditioning cramps.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more of the little things. You look at the game of Arkansas against Auburn, how many times they lined up off sides, or it's that repetitive motion that you get in this rhythm of how you're supposed to line up. It's little things like that. You can tell that they missed workouts. The kids aren't as strong. They're not as conditioned. I mean, that was the first thing I picked up when I went to the game, the junior high game, is you could just tell when the fourth quarter come around, they're just the conditioning was not there.
Yeah. They're starting to wear down a lot more. So your son's at Ozark right now?
Yeah, my stepson, he's a ninth grader at Ozark, and that kid, he's gonna be a beast.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's on the same team as my little cousin.
Okay, yeah. They have not lost a game since. So they're in ninth grade. They have not lost a game since week 2 of the 6th grade. That's Dang. How. Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, so that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So the Auburn game, my God, man! Like, first of all, I love the spirit that the Razorbacks showed because if that was last year, that's 56-0.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes,
they're getting blown out, and it just shows you like how much of an impact Chad Morris makes. Because like I think Will Muschamp said that it wasn't Gus calling those plays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was and before the game, there was a lot of people saying, look, we can tell how different Arkansas is now that they're coaches. And we had Josh Vitale from Auburn on, he was an Auburn beat writer before the Auburn game. And we asked him about that. How awkward is that your own camp, your Auburn guys are sitting there saying, I can tell that they're coached a lot differently. That'd have to be awkward. You're basically talking about your own OC and the team that you just came from how different they're playing. And you could tell how stagnant the offense was at Auburn. I mean, you got Bo Nix, who balled out against Alabama last year and this year. But the biggest thing is with Arkansas, you can tell it's the coaching is you got your walk-ons. You got second, third string players playing like they're starters and All-Americans. I mean, bumper pool goes out, you bring the next guy in. I mean, guys are coming in balling out. And you got two or three of the top five tacklers in the SEC are Razorback guys. When's the last time you've said defense in Arkansas in the same sentence? When's that happened?
They were getting scored on by North Dakota. No, just kidding. What was it? North Texas, man.
Yep.
Like down the field. Like that's embarrassing. Just watching that stuff. By the way, Bumper Pool, if he keeps playing at the rate he is, he's going to be a super high pick in the draft.
He's going to be like that Keuchel, the dude out of the Panthers. I mean, that's the thing. But you give a guy with heart. You give a guy with a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to ball out. That's what
for sure.
That's what you see these guys, 3-4 stars. They get freaking progressed. They get developed into these 5-star players in college, and they want to prove something. And I think Arkansas, the football team, they're bought into Coach Pittman. They're bought into Odom, and now some of the play calling's been a little sketchy, but I think that's that and special teams and the coverage. But
for sure,
they've been getting a lot of flack because of that. But then that goes into how much of that do they actually get to practice? How much have they lacked with the lack of conditioning and summer ball goes into play with the special teams? So it's but I'm proud of the team. The coaching has just been amazing, and the team. The development and the effort they're getting out of these second and third string players, you couldn't ask for a better team.
Oh, for sure, yeah. It's just the way that they play for Sam Pittman. It's they that they genuinely care for this man. And to be honest, whenever he cried on the podium, whenever he got the job, and it just told me so much about how much this means to this man and how much this program means to him, because he was here in 2013, right? Whenever he was the offensive line, with Bielema. So he clearly loves his program, loves his state. So that was amazing to see. But during the game, like, to be honest, if they don't muff that, not muff the punt, if they don't that punt doesn't get blocked, like, Arkansas wins that game, because Chad Morris was calling the offense, and man, they did not look the same as last year. You're right. The coaching was way, 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 way off. But it was just nice to see that, Arkansas actually fight an SEC, a top SEC opponent to that level, and should have come out with a dub.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing with Coach Pittman. It's more, he also cares about the players just as much as and like you bring up the podium thing. He went away from that and not only showed it on the podium. Now every press conference, hey, well, I'm tired of Arkansas being disrespected. I'm tired of them being embarrassed. They'll never be embarrassed again. So that it's more of his actions, and you're seeing what the product you're getting on the field. That means more than anything, because it's showing on the field what he's saying in practice and after the games.
Yeah. So clearly that was a fumble at the end of the game.
Yes,
we both could agree.
Yeah.
Like, you can't muff up on it and then throw it backwards, and what the heck was going on there.
Well, and if you remember the Missouri game that they were bringing video back of, where the ball went into the end zone, 5 seconds later they jump on it and then they come back and say it was a touchdown. So a lot of it was they knew they messed up. They had to cover their rear end, and then they still made the wrong call, because before we started going live, we were talking about, my biggest fear was when the referee was blowing the whistle incomplete. I was like, we're screwed, because that's a dead ball. I was like, well, there was no way. That was my explanation. That was my only argument of why they would not overturn the call. But then other people were saying, no, they reversed that years ago, and now you can go to replay and overturn a call. And I was like, okay, that's Arkansas's ball. They still said it was Auburn. So I was like, man, it's just – but for them to, let it go, yeah, they were pissed off about it. But for them to overcome it and Now they're on to Ole Miss. That's what we need to do. You spend a couple of weeks on it, but now get over it. And we got to move on to Ole Miss because that's even a bigger challenge because they just almost put 50 on Bama.
Yeah. So low key, I actually kind of like the turnout for the game because I feel like that really lights a fire under Arkansas for next year. Whenever we go against Auburn, they're gonna want that dub. They're gonna fight a little bit harder. So I would have loved it if they would have got the win, but also I think that it also carries over into the future also, and it makes a little more of a rivalry too between Arkansas and Auburn. Because when you think of rivalries for Arkansas, you kind of think of Auburn, but not really. Like mostly we despise LSU.
And Arkansas's lacked. I mean, that's the thing. When you go to Texas, who's their rival? OU. You can go to Clemson. Who's their rival? Carolina, Michigan, Notre Dame. Michigan. Like if you have a true rival, it's popped off within seconds. Arkansas, I think the closest thing they can say right now is A&M, but that's only because they play in Jerry World, and it's not really. I think, and they're trying to make the Missouri game a rivalry, but you can't make a rivalry game. It has to be played, and they come out with a trophy. But LSU used to be that rivalry game, but they were playing in War Memorial Stadium. Dude, that was the best game. I mean, because day after Thanksgiving, everybody was looking forward to that game.
Yes, sir. So, I remember back in Bielema's time when they shut out LSU back-to-back. Was it back-to-back years they shut out?
They shut out back-to-back games. They shut out LSU and Ole Miss back-to-back games.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, misremembering, but that was insane, and that's what made it feel more like a rivalry with LSU and Arkansas, man. It's because you want that, and it makes it more of an impassioned game. It brings the players a little more into it, makes it a little more intense, makes it more worth it, And I think that's what Arkansas has been missing for the past 3 years. Like since the end of Bielema through Chad Morris, like no one's felt like, yeah, we gotta watch this game because it's important,
Yeah.
But let's get on to the state of the Razorback franchise right now, and I think that we've already spoken on a little bit. I am an absolute believer in Sam Pittman. Like I'm all in.
Yeah, his whole staff, and that's the thing. What we talked about earlier. You can get on a podium and you can say things, but it's what you do. If those guys, like last year, the kids cashed out. They were done. They weren't playing defense. They weren't playing offense. I mean, you let your guy who you cut off the team go to Western Kentucky and then smoke you, and not care. You didn't have a care in the world. Let him come on your field and smoke you the way Ty Story come and just blitzed them. So. Yeah, I bought in with the whole coaching staff. I bought in with Browse. Like I said earlier, his play calling a little bit. It's a little sketchy. I'm talking about overall. Odom's top notch. That dude, just how he has the guys in the right position. When you get your backups in the right position, just as much as you do your starters, that tells me a lot. Sam Pittman's got his guys. Odom, Browse. Fountain and the special teams. You give this team a full year of their camp and a full year of like legitimate camp. Not held back by this COVID stuff, they're going to be a scary team.
Oh yeah. So I just hope to God Barry Odom doesn't leave. I like whenever Sam Pittman got Barry Odom to come down to Arkansas, I was beside myself because I read that on I think Saturday Down South, and I was just livid because I'm over here in South Korea, so any information about the Hogs, I'm just gonna freak out. But I saw that, I'm like, oh my God. And, I knew about Barry Odom. I knew he was a really, really good defensive coordinator, but hearing that he has had multiple teams in the top 10 defenses multiple years in a row across different programs, it's like, yes, I need that at Arkansas. Like you're right, defense was not a huge staple for us for a long time, and how many games did we just give up in the fourth quarter? Leading by 2-3 touchdowns, like Missouri.
Yeah. The biggest part of it was there was no halftime adjustment. Now it goes back to the Bielema days and it goes back to the Morris days. And it's crazy. The game that they won, and even the Auburn game they should have won, Arkansas adjusted, the other team did not. And you could tell that. And that's what they were missing. There was no adjustment at halftime, and other teams picked up on what Arkansas was doing. They adjusted and they wore them down, 1, and 2, just shut them out because they knew what they were going to run.
It's just amazing what a well-coached team that this team was, because that's one thing I was talking about with War Machine last week is we hated when Chad Morris would just go, not me, it wasn't my fault. I don't have the recruits I need. I don't have this. I don't have that. Well, you know what? The defense did this. I'm like, dude, just take a little responsibility, please.
And then the OC sitting there basically throwing his offensive line under the bus. You're going to have to go. What coach says you're going to have to go talk to the players? No, you're the coach. You own it, and then you go fix it behind closed doors. Like, you don't call them out like that in a press conference.
No, that's a terrible way of coaching. And like, it doesn't.
You can't be a leader if you have no ownership. If you're passing the buck, if you don't have that ownership, how can you be a leader? Even if it's not your fault, if you're a leader, you still take ownership of what the people that's underneath you do.
Exactly. Like I said in multiple podcasts, like, if the leader goes, nah, that was on my Lance Corporal, or that was on this guy or that. What the leader says, no, I failed. I should, readjust how I'm going to teach them how to do it later on. I need to figure out what I'm doing wrong that they're not getting, or something like that, to that effect. They need to take ownership, and they need to try and, figure out the problem. That's just what good leaders do. It's, you don't just dump the blame on whoever's lower than you. Like, I hate that term, crap rolls downhill, No, you should take all of it and then teach, so it doesn't happen to them.
Yeah.
So you don't
go take them off by themselves.
Exactly.
Hey, look, man, I took one for you, but look, that's the last time.
Exactly.
It ain't going to happen twice.
Yeah, there's not going to be a hill for you.
But I love the way the future of Arkansas. I love the way that the program's going. I think they've proven more in the past 3 games than they've proven in the last 3 years. I mean, I think we can say that whether they lost. I mean, the score predicts, Auburn won that game, but we wanted coming in this season progress. Show us progress. And I think they've already exceeded our expectations when it comes to the progress.
Yeah, it's just amazing what's going on with the way the Arkansas. And when they won that Mississippi State game, you could just feel the optimism. I could feel it from South Korea. My entire family was freaking out. All my friends were. Everyone in Ozark. Everyone was like, "Yeah, woo pig suey," from all the way over here, man. And, there's some Razorbacks here too on base, and they were like, wearing something you don't see often in the gym.
Exactly.
Razorback hat,
And I think leading in the fourth quarter, it was like, how are we going to lose this game? How are we going to lose? Oh, here it goes. And I think them actually winning the game that was close in the fourth quarter done more for them than if it would have been a blowout, a runaway game, because they were just waiting for the Hogs to screw it up, and then they don't. And they're like, oh my God, we actually held on for a win. So that was the most optimistic thing about it, is holding on for the win.
Yes. It just shows you the culture change too. Like, they didn't let off the gas. They stepped on the throat. They stepped on the throat, and they went for it, which I think that they were trying to do also in the Auburn game, but stuff happens.
Yeah.
But so I got a question here.
Yes.
Mr. Hayes. How do you guys feel about Kentron Jackson coming to the Razorbacks? I think that's a recruit.
I mean, it just depends on, what position. I'm not too big in the recruiting part of it, but it's like, I think they're starting to, that's one thing. Sam Pittman has put his foothold in Oklahoma. He's starting to get a lot of recruits out of Oklahoma, and that was the biggest thing under the Bielema days was, they had a foothold in Texas, and he basically went into Texas saying, your players are no good. So what he's already done with getting these top players out of Oklahoma, he's getting kind of like what Musselman's doing with the basketball program. You're getting your top in-state guys, and then you're building a wall around Oklahoma. And a lot of people, Fayetteville's an hour and a half, 2 hours from Tulsa. Booker T, Jinx, Union, all those high school programs, Owasso, Catoosa, all those programs are right there in the Tulsa metro area that you could be going and grabbing. Now they're going, and I mean, you're sitting on a gold mine, because they would always go to Stillwater or OU. Now Pittman's going into Oklahoma, and he's getting those guys, and you're starting to get your in-state guys, but you start believing and you start being able to produce these people and put them into the NFL. That's what's going to get you the recruits to come.
Yeah. The recruiting has been amazing, by the way. Oh yeah, Kentron Jackson. So he goes on D-Tron on Twitter. I follow him. I don't know why I wasn't. No, but he's a 4-star wide receiver coming out.
Oh yeah, how freaking step.
He,
I think it's going on that step. Them keeping him on the staff was the biggest thing because now they got some burners. They got some guys that can really. And let's talk about another person that's really stepped up, Davion Warren. How he's just blown up this year. Talking about pull on defense. Warren's been the freaking MVP of the offense this year. How he stepped up and had all those receiving yards and touchdowns and kept us in the games. And that's another thing. The guy that's not the starter, he's not the guy that, like the Knox or the Burks and, the Henry. He's this guy that he has a chip on his shoulder and he's ready to ball out. And he's definitely proved that.
Yeah. It's Coach Stepp. We're talking about, I'm so much praise for that guy, but he's a guy that just straight up loves his players, and his players love him back. Sutton up in Denver still goes and visits him in his offseason. Goes and visits with Coach Stepp. And that just shows you the kind of relationship and just foundations he builds with his players. And it's great to see. And I think that's why Sam Pittman kept him on staff, is because he felt that he had that kind of connection with the players that he had drafted so far, but the state of Arkansas Razorbacks going forward, man, I am so excited. And, I haven't had this kind of optimism in 4 years. Like when it comes to
it's been a while. I mean, it's been longer than that, because if you think about, I think everything when Bielema, he had the back-to-back wins, and then they had that bowl win over Texas. Everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what happened to him. If it was because he went on that show, he had a kid, he had a lot of things going on, and I think a lot of it, is recruiting outrun him. He goes in there and says that these players are not going to work in his system, and you're not getting the talent. Plus, and then Sam Pittman leaving. A lot of that has to do with that. Now it comes full circle. Sam Pittman's back, and all of a sudden, the respect that they're already getting. What got me is it's been a long time since Arkansas has been on a pick'em game on game day. Like, you would just skip through the whole thing. What's Corso going to put the headgear on? Now they're actually, who's going to win the Auburn-Arkansas game? It's really cool to actually see that pick'em game and have, Kirk Herbstreit even called the upset. So, it's nice to see that national respect. You're getting more national respect than you're getting SEC respect, because, for sure. It's going to take a long time for that.
Oh, yeah. But so that's what the biggest thing about, like, when Sam Pittman left, the run game for Bielema went way down, man. And the development of the offensive line went way down. I think Frank Ragnow was, the last offensive lineman taken in the first round for us from Sam Pittman, and by the way, Sam Pittman's recruitment of offensive line coming in, amazing. Like, the things that he's going to do, I think I've seen on Twitter multiple offensive line leaning toward Arkansas, just in how they're tweeting and basically how they're reacting, which is amazing. Because I think for me, if I'm building an NFL or college team, the first things I'm getting are a defensive line and offensive line, and everything comes after that. If you don't have your foundations, man, you don't have a team. And I think that's what Chad Morris was constantly missing in his schemes. That he wanted his offensive line to be smaller and quicker, but dude, they got to block Auburn. They got to block Alabama.
Exactly.
Man.
Well, and another thing is, you look at Coach Nick Saban. He had to change his game, how he wanted to do to stay elite. If Nick Saban is having to change how he coaches, Brett Bielema sure the hell should, because he's not Nick Saban. And that's he did not want. He thought his Big 12 or Big 10 style would work in the SEC. And it's not. You can't be one-dimensional. You look at OU. They got one of the highest-powered offenses in the country, but when it comes to playoff time, you don't have that defense to, step up and be as balanced as your offense. And so you end up coming up short because then all you need is a couple of good stops, and you can't even get those because you don't have that defensive talent. You're having teams like Texas Tech and Baylor score 60 on you every game. You got to have that balance. And with Coach Bielema, he just wanted that smash mouth. That's not the way the game's played now.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to see, you have to be adaptable to win, or to keep on winning, to keep on feeling success. Like with Oklahoma, I think they're kind of stuck in not a rut. They're still really good. They're a good team for their conference and all that stuff. You put them in in SEC where they have to play defense. I don't know if they're on the same level as respect, but yeah, you're right. Whenever they get to the playoffs and they play teams that actually play defense, like even if you have Kyler Murray or you have Baker Mayfield or you have Jalen Hurts, it's not going to be enough. You have to play. You have to be adaptable and play that hard defense, or just adaptability is the most important thing when it comes to coaching and building any sort of culture.
Yeah, and you get the offense where you're putting a lot of pressure on your offense and your defense not being as productive, and you get yourself in a hole where your defense is not as productive. Your game plan's gone. I mean, it's gone because now you're like, crap, we're down 21 points. So even if we're scoring, we still got to stop them from scoring, and that's not happening.
Yeah. And you can't always just count on that, man. So, I mean, you have to play balanced, team-friendly football. Like, you can't just lean totally on one side and expect the others, like, just do enough, please. You got to go hand in hand, which I think the Arkansas Razorbacks are slowly getting there. I think the defense is a little bit higher right now. But the offense is coming along.
Yeah, the offense is coming along. The defense is definitely carrying. I think the two biggest things that I've seen is stop with the double reverse. And when you get in the goal line situation, stop putting in KJ Jefferson or Malik Hornsby. I mean, at least give them a series where they're in rhythm, and not when you give the quarterback the ball, they know, okay, he's going to run. I think that's been the two biggest takeaways. And I kind of, went at some people because after the Mississippi State game, there was a lot of that. But it's like mine was the timing. You just had your first SEC win in 20 games. It's like, all right, let's talk about this on Tuesday. Let's enjoy the win on Sunday. But now weeks later, we can see with the miscues on lining up and putting Hornsby in the game against Auburn when Franks really wanted the ball. Because that's another thing. You start building that friction in between your quarterback and your OC. That could really cause – because he's going to be like, no, I'm staying in the game. But, Franks really wants to try to prove he's the leader of this team, and you've got to let him. Let him fail.
Exactly.
Because if you're putting someone else in on the goal line, you're in a way telling Franks, man, either they're saying he's scared he's going to get hurt, but if you play scared you're going to get hurt, you're going to get hurt. That's the thing. You tense up and think you're going to get hurt, that's when everything goes downhill.
Yeah. So, quick question: do you know? Because did they just strip pull him, or was he like? Because I know some people were saying he might have been a little banged up when they pulled him out for the.
Well, they done it. You got to remember they done it in the Mississippi State game with KJ Jefferson, and then the Auburn game they put in Malik Hornsby. And so that tells me that I don't know if they're trying a different goal line package or trying to get somebody. My biggest thing is they got a goal line package, and a lot of it is with his injury to his ankle. They're kind of afraid right now that. So with all the injuries we've been having with the Achilles and the ankles and the knees, I think that they need to stop being scared and let him take – because that's what – he goes down and drives the ball. There's nothing more deflating than I done drove my team down the field 80 yards, and now we're on the 5-yard line and you're going to pull me. That's going to work for a couple of games, but if they do that this week, against Ole Miss, I think that's 3 games in a row. I think that can really start – all it takes is a spark where he starts getting frustrated and that trust starts to break a little bit. So my advice is, man, if they're getting on the goal line, man, you got to keep him in.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sir, I think we're both very, very optimistic about the future of the Razorback football program. And, just from the recruiting and just seeing the optimism with, players are, going out and recruiting other players, which, is pretty crazy because, like, that's not a huge thing with Razorback recruits from the past. But, I love Lucas Cooley going out, and literally every person that goes out and, says like they have interest, like, yo, come on home.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Mike Woods has been a big part of that. I mean, the guys, that's where social media is kind of in a way good, because you get these guys sit there and chat on and DM each other and get on Instagram like, dude, look how much fun we're having here. Look what they've done for me in my game. And once, there's nothing that can be said, but these players and these high school kids are seeing the progress Arkansas is making. And I'm telling you, they're going to turn at least 2, they're going to flip 2 to 3 guys.
Oh yeah.
that was on the fence of going to Arkansas, but how they're playing on the field now and the heart that they're giving, and you got some of these walk-ons, some of these guys that are going to be preferred walk-ons, some of these guys that think they're coming in being second string, they're seeing what's going on here. It's going to make them change their mind to go to Arkansas and play.
Yeah, I think I saw this Bethea guy on I think he's a 4-star, 3-star recruit, 4-star in some, and he was like, my recruitment's 100% open. They had the Hogs, Arizona, and I think Auburn or something like that. And then I just slid into the comments that you know what it is, dude, and put Razorback doing this at him, and he liked it. I'm like, well, that's good to know. That's good to know. Like, you're strongly
and sometimes you got to you got to hold it with a grain of salt, because Kelly Bryant last year, he played Arkansas fan base, and they're doing it just to try to get likes, and they're doing it to interact with the fans. But I mean, by far it's leaps and bounds from what it used to be on a mindset and what the product on the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. Sir, do you want to get into the women's sport aspect of this?
Oh yeah, definitely, always. That's my bread and butter.
Yes, sir. So, in case you guys don't know, Porter Hayes is really he's a huge advocate for women's sports for just across the board. High school, collegiate, pros, all that stuff. So, do you want to get into that real fast?
Yeah, that's basically what started it. Was the SEC women's basketball tournament 2 years ago was in Greenville, South Carolina. And that's where my dad's side of the family was from. And Tyler Butler, he's the owner of Sports and Culture, Sports Media out there. And so we started talking to each other, and he's like, hey, man, I want you to write for me, give me some insight on the Ladybacks. So I started writing for him, and then all of a sudden I got my credentials to cover the Ladybacks, and it just starts that fire to want to really start doing more for women's sports. That's you see the product on the court and the softball team, and University of Arkansas is really blessed on the amount of women's programs they have, top notch. I mean, the soccer team went to the NCAA tournament last year. They're ranked 3rd in the nation now. The women's golf team, Maria Fossey won the individual. The girls that they got stepping up. You got a freshman that just won the tournament last week. The cross country team's ranked number 1. I mean, the volleyball team's up and coming. Jordan Weaver is now your gymnastics coach. Mike Neighbors, you can't say enough about that guy. Mike Neighbors and what he's done for the Ladybacks basketball team, and Chelsea Dungy, and had Alexis Tolfrey last year. Then Courtney Deifel with the softball program. I could go on and on and on, but I guess the love of my sport started back in the '90s with UConn women basketball. My dad was stationed in Connecticut in the military, and so he started showing me these teams, and I started following them. And my best friend in high school, she was a Tennessee Volunteer fan. So that to me is one of the most underrated sports rivalries in all of college sports, was the Tennessee UConn basketball rivalry that was going on. And so ever since then, it's just been a passion. And the more traction that it gains and people are actually gaining more interest in women's sports, the more I want to do. So I really enjoy going to the basketball games, the softball games, and you just try to do as much as I can, and with the Hog Talk podcast, we started doing a weekly women's sports report that I do once a week, and I give a rundown on everything going on with all the sports at Arkansas. So it's been a really fun ride.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really overshadowed in sports in general as women's sports. Like my wife is a I guess we were talking about earlier, 2-time collegiate athlete in track and volleyball, and that's what really sold me on her, because I love athletics, and she loves to be an athlete. She was an athlete, so it was just kind of like it's just I want there to be more shine on their play and all that stuff, because I feel like when I see the stands and that just packed for a men's game, or a stadium full of fans for a football game, I want that same type of energy for my women. I want that same,
definitely.
I want that same atmosphere, just to, because it's, I want them to feel just as important, because they definitely are. When we should definitely shine that.
And that's the thing with the WNBA and the bubble and everything that went on with that and the attention they got. I mean, but it needs to be every day. It needs, that's the thing. Like, It needs to be today, tomorrow, on. The college game. It needs to be all the sports that you can, because they all deserve the coverage and they all deserve just the same notoriety as the men's. I know they're not as popular. They're not going to fill the stands as much, but
Yeah.
you know what? It's still just as fun. Like when I go to a women's basketball game and, they bring the kids on the court and they let the starting five come out and shake their hands. They're throwing T-shirts in the stands and they're putting a good product on the field. They're a really good program. So, I mean, yeah, I'd love to see 10, 15,000 fans in the Bud Walton Arena for a women's basketball game. I mean, it would make me proud for, Coach Neighbors and the team, because I'm telling you, don't sleep on the Razorbacks this year because, man, they got a killer Destiny Slocum. They got a transfer in from Oregon State. Plus, you got Michaela Daniels. You got, freaking Chelsea Dungy, all these people that have coming back. Jalen Mason's coming from an injury. Amber Ramirez, Splash Sisters, coming off setting SC3. They finished in the top 3 in 3-point percentage last year. So that's one team. And plus the Ladyback softball team, their season was cut short and they started off on fire.
Yeah. It's crazy. And I think Arkansas sports in general is kind of, an afterthought in the national field of view, but I don't think anyone really realizes how good the athletics are in Arkansas, just in general.
Mm-hmm.
We're top ranked in almost, most sports. Our men's baseball team has been in the College World Series, man, multiple years. And by the way, whenever, oh my God, when that mishap, I was watching it live here. I was in the mood because the time difference. It was I think it was early in the morning, man. And whenever that mishap is, I just what are you doing? Why?
Yeah, that broke hearts
all the time,
Yeah, and I relate that back to the Stoner fumble back when he fumbled the ball, and just how talented they were and how much heart they had as a team. I is strong, and the team that beat them, Tennessee, and went on to win the national championship that year. So that was another bitter pill to swallow. It's kind of like back when I was in high school and Ozark. We beat Boonville 21-0, and then got tripped up by Nashville, and then Boonville ended up winning the state championship that year. It's just why? Because that's the hated rival of Ozark.
You know what? My Razorback experience was kind of like a Chad Morris era of Razorback football. We had Coach Coatney, and this guy came in. Coatney, yeah.
Oh no, dude! He was one of the best high school quarterbacks I've ever seen.
Yeah, really good. Coach wise, he was nothing but platitudes. Trust me, he coached me.
Yeah.
And dude, he barely talked to me. And it was just Coach Burns, coach there now. He coached me up like crazy because I clearly I took a year off from football and then I came back and it was Coach Burns that sat me down and got me straight, got me where I needed to be. But Coach Coatney he was nothing but platitudes, and for some reason tried to bring in and run a 3-3 spread in a running conference. There's nothing no matter how good or how, because our defensive and offensive lines that year, we had the biggest size in all of the conference, and pretty much Boonville, anyone we played against, our size on the offense defensive line was huge, and we still just ran the spread constantly, and we ran a 3-3 stack, which is just not a good defense to run against for anything against the run. But what I'm saying, it's just coaching matters. But back to coaching matters. But back to the women's issues. So, sir, I know that you were pretty much part of a controversy this past couple of days.
Yeah. There was a guy, knucklehead. Last night, there was a women's basketball player. She posted a tweet just about her pictures on the basketball court, and this guy, just run his mouth and made just a very inappropriate comment. And so I just called him out on it. I'm like, dude, that as an adult, because I thought it was a troll at first, but then you look and see that this dude's in radio. You know, he's a director of a radio station. So I just basically called him out. I was like, dude, you know, that's not how you handle yourself. That's not how you treat women, you know, in general, and especially female athletes. I mean, because that's just the passion that I stand of. You know, they need to deserve, you know, anybody. Because if a guy was to do that, they wouldn't say nothing about it.
No.
But the comment that was made, so I kind of, you know, just said, okay, look, and it took off, and it really went further than what I expected it to go. But it's almost like a friend of mine told me, he's like, he has a platform, and if that's what he's going to do with his platform, then he does not deserve that platform. So, you know, I felt bad about the situation because that was not my intent, you know, because it's about her. It's about the team. It's about standing up for female athletes. It's about standing up for people because they get enough crap as it is. You know, they can't even hardly put anything, and somebody's got some knucklehead comment. So I just wanted to stick up for them, and I didn't, you know, want nothing to happen. And it's just, that's what happened, you know. But to me, my biggest thing is, look, man, let these players be players. Let these girls be girls. Let them go out and ball out. Treat them just like the guys. You know, stick up for them. You know, because these are some hell of athletes, and they're good people, and they don't deserve the scrutiny that. Well, you know, and it's me. I had Sarah Spain on my podcast, and we were talking about the mispronunciation of their names. Learn their names. Learn their last names. Sabrina Ionescu, one of the best women's basketball players of all time. One, they can't say her name right, and then when she wins, she scores 3,000 points and had 2 assists. They're like, and you look at her comments, they're like, "Go make me a sandwich." It's like, come, I mean, get real. I mean, you can't. You know, if that would have been LeBron James in college, if it had been Kyrie Irving in college, there would have been nothing said. But she was one, and she was one of the greatest college basketball players to come through. I mean, and that's what they have to deal with. And here's the sad thing: that's what we see. No telling what we don't see. There's no telling what the comments, and then it happens all over. It happens on every women's sport everywhere. Oh, I bet you can't do this, and well, if you're in a guy's world, well, they're not guys. But you know what?
They have their own sphere. That's why they're playing in their own sphere.
Exactly. So I guess that's another
like,
thing that gets me fired up, is because I see the negative side of it, and I see what they have to deal with just on a day-to-day basis, what they have to go through as a female athlete. And so I stick up for them. That's and it's kind of grown into this big advocacy of, you know what, I got their back, especially like a team like Arkansas. You know, I cover them, and you get to know the players. You get to know Coach Neighbors and his staff, and they're just, Coach Neighbors is one of the coolest people ever. You know, I joke and tell people all the time, he would coach the game, and then he'd be playing guitar at your bonfire the same night. You know, he's just that dude. So when you see comments like that, and you see his players getting run at like that, you know, you want to clap back. And I'm kind of glad I did, because it's like there's no need for that, especially in 2020. There's no need for that.
Well, and to be, you know, a father of a brand new girl, love you, Kaylani, love you. But if my daughter was in you know, as an athlete, I wouldn't want to see her a comment like that, you know, referring to her as a stripper for just taking some photos on a court, and it wasn't even like anything provocative.
Exactly.
Stance. Like, what do you? Why? Like, first of all, you're making something sexual out of something that's not sexual at all. Like, what do you? No. This tells me more about you than it does about this picture. So, you doing what you did, I mean, I agree with it for the most part. Like that's call them out, like, because like that's just stupid. And if you're gonna have that platform and do that type of thing, then that, you know, you're gross. I don't think that you should.
And a grown man, you know, I'm 38. You know, I got to think of someone my age, and I was going to sit there and say something like that about a college athlete. I mean, that's basically someone half my age. You know what I'm saying? It's dirty. It's like, why would you even say that? One, you're degrading the person. You're like, oh, bring in the pole. You know, it's like, get out of here with that stuff. You know, and it's just, you can't. And it's like, again, I say, it's not like he was a Twitter troll. This dude has been, and if you're a radio personality, you are very in tune with what's going on in the social world. If you're not, then you don't need, and so there's no excuses. There's in the backtracking and the sucking up that I've seen post that, further let me know that there's no remorse. I mean, there was a little apologies and, I didn't mean intent. Yes, you did, because you wouldn't have said that
You knew the
if
intent.
you didn't knew the intent. I mean, it's, you're trying to play dumb. There's no, again, that goes back to the ownership. Own what you did, take your L, and move on.
Yeah, the thing about it is, like, if that's not what you meant, why'd you say it?
Exactly.
Right? Because it's clearly going through your head. It can't be a knot in your head and you put it on Twitter.
Yeah.
It's them just trying to cover their own, CYA. And there's no place for that. And as a parent, that's not something you'd want to see on social, as someone talking about your daughter that way, especially on a national platform like Twitter. And it's kind of gross. It's just so gross because it wasn't even like anything hard. It wasn't anything bad.
Yeah.
It's stupid. But I'm glad you did that, Porter. That was good. Is there anything else you want to talk about, sir?
No, man, I enjoyed being on. It was cool to come on and talk about sports. I mean, it's just, we got a lot of the good things going on in Arkansas. I mean, everything. I mean, this is the main thing I told the guys before the season started. I said, if we can just get 7 to 8 wins out of the football program, it reflects on the whole state of the program on every sport that Arkansas. If the football team's winning, they're going to go to the basketball games. If the football team's winning, they're going to go to the baseball games. The baseball team, when they went to World Series, they had a good following. And of course, when they made it to the final, there was that uproar. But after that, it kind of, it's like the football season sets the tone for the year.
So we're from Ozark, man. Football's God.
Exactly.
It's God. Football, and then it's
we're hillbillies.
Yeah,
we're hillbillies.
Yeah, because people say that football is God in Texas or wherever though, and they have a lot more to do in Texas than football.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in Arkansas, football is what we do, and it just. Whenever Arkansas Razorback football is going, the entire state's going. You're right. Like everything is rolling. Everyone's feeling good. Everyone's happy. And I think that optimism is spreading throughout the state right now, throughout all of our programs. And, I hope that optimism flows out through the women's sports too. Like I would love to see that. Because,
definitely.
I think
it was cool, because like when the soccer team was kicking off and they were getting 1,000 to 1,200 people at the soccer games, they're setting attendance records. I mean, the attendance records for the women's basketball game went up 96%. I mean, you're getting more season ticket holders. That's what it is. You're getting the people to come to the stands, and I want to see that in every sport. With the gymnastics, what Jordan Weaver done with the gymnastics team and getting people packed into Bud Walton Arena and setting attendance. That's what it means to me. You can have all the following you want on social media, but it's like you start filling the stands and people start giving into the community of the women's sports. That's when it's really going to start catching fire, because they're going to go to these games. They're like, man, that was a lot of fun. And they're going to go back and they're going to become season ticket holders. Yeah. And dude, and let's be real. It's cheaper to go to an Arkansas women's basketball game than it is to go to a hillbilly football game. Let that sink in. You take your family. I mean, that's the thing. It's $20-$25 to take your family to a high school football game. And it's cheaper to get into Bud Walton Arena and go watch a women's basketball game or go to Barnhill and watch the Ladybacks gymnastics team. It's crazy.
And these are top-notch athletes.
Yes.
And, I mean, I love my hillbillies, but they're amateurs. That's pretty much what they are. I mean, of course, they're not paid in college either, but they're right below professionals. And you're right. I think that more light needs to be spread onto women's sports. And honestly, like I'm trying to get my girl to be the first NFL kicker. That's what I'm or even just create a football league for their own. That'd be great. Also, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, they're starting to make waves. When it comes to the coachings and Hammonds and the NBA and the coach there at the NFL, they're starting to the first base coach with the Giants. So, they're starting to expand out for women's sports. And I think, social media has had a lot to do with it. But the girls and the women that when they get the roles, they're taking, it's crazy. I know it's the bubble, but, even with Jeannie Buss and being the owner of the Lakers, she was the first female owner to win a championship. So even little things like that, even if she was giving it to her by her family, you know what? You still done it. You were the first woman to win a world championship as a female owner. So
yeah. Well, the thing is, she made the moves. You know, she's the one that brought LeBron there. She's the one that brought Anthony Davis there. So I mean, she made the moves. She proved herself. I mean, she didn't just inherit Mark Davis. Mark Davis he's an example of someone getting a team and then running into the dirt for a long time, for like 20 years. Jamie Buss got the Lakers, got LeBron, got Anthony Davis, got a championship. So I mean, it's, you know, that's one way to look at it. But Porter, I mean, is there anything else you want to cover, bro? I mean,
no, man. That's good.
Such a great talk. I could talk to you. I could talk to you the rest of the day,
man. We talk for hours, man, for real. Yeah, it was a pleasure. Again, thanks me for having it on your platform, man. We're at the Hog Talk Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, the Arkansas Hog Talk on Facebook, and you know, give us a follow, listen to our podcast. You can hear us on the Hitline Podcast Network. So if you go to hitthatline.com, you can see our podcast along with the Halftime, the Morning Rush, Ruskin and Zach, all the other good shows that are on. You know, Primetime Sports is a new high school football only show once a week on the Hit That Line podcast network. So I mean, if you're into high school sports, we got a show for you. Arkansas, I mean, we try to do the best we can to cover all the sports there, especially with us in our podcast where we try to get the guests and we try to cover Arkansas sports the best we can.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Make sure you guys go follow them. I know you got like at least 7 with my family. All right. Well, I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Woo pig.